It is extremely important to go back to the basics every so often. The foundation of everything your dog knows is going to be on the basics. That's the basis of everything. If we don't constantly train our dogs and then also go back to the foundation of everything they know, they're going to start getting sloppy, which means that they're going to get sloppy at everything else within their training, right? Extinction of a behavior is when a behavior that was once reinforced is no longer reinforced. And yes, that means your sits, your recalls, your stays, your implied stays, your heels, everything can become extinct. They can now be no longer important for the dog to care about doing it because it is no longer reinforced. With that said, that is exactly why we want to go back to the basics. It also doesn't take long. If your dog has already been trained on certain techniques, certain commands, and they already know this information, and we haven't poisoned the cue, we haven't overused the cue while they're just blowing it off, right? Then it's pretty simple and easy to readdress these skills, and then the dogs relearn them and learn them very well and quickly. So yeah, don't forget to go back to the basics. Honestly, I think every single training session should start with about 5 minutes of the basics, and then we can get into everything else. And you can take it another step further. Instead of just doing the basics in a very controlled environment, after you do that day in, day out, you train your dog, you always do a couple little minutes of basics. Start doing the basics in something that has more stimulation around, something that is more enticing for the dog to ignore you, right? So that way you can start communicating with your dog at a higher level, allowing them to ignore those so that way they can be reinforced to do the things that you want them to do when you want them to do it. It's going to make the odds of them blowing off a command when it's extremely important, otherwise could be potentially dangerous, like a recall because there's a bicyclist riding down the road and they want to go chase it, right? We don't want that. Although that is extremely stimulating to a dog, that could be a trigger that could make the dog want to chase. Obviously we're never going to out train certain genetics in certain dogs, but we can do really, really good at enticing the dogs to want to do something else because they have been rewarded over and over and over again for doing certain behaviors. And if we're always increasing the dog's stimulations or environmental stimulations while doing this type of training, you're going to have a damn good dog. The next question is, when do you get to stop doing this type of training? You don't. You never get to stop for the dog's entire life. Obviously, once it gets too old to really actively be doing things, like if you really want to say whatever, then say whatever, right? It's going to be situation by situation, your environment. There's plenty of times that people have too high of expectations for what the dog actually needs, right? If you live on a farm and your dog is never going to go anywhere and meet other dogs, and let's say your dog is reactive to other dogs, but your dog's never going to leave and no dogs ever come to your farm, right? Or your rural area, why are you going to take the dog to a stressful city and try to train it when it's a non-issue to begin with, right? So have the right expectations for your environment that works for your household and works for the dog, and train for it. And then let dogs be dogs.
Yes, good girl.